Ever since I was a kid, saving every penny was ingrained in me. Hunting for deals became a sort of personal mission. It wasn't just about saving money, but more about the adrenaline rush that came with finding a diamond in the rough. So, when I scrolled past an ad on Craigslist for a cutting-edge laptop, practically untouched and listed at a steal, my heart raced. It was exactly the model I had been eyeing for months but couldn't afford. The listing had a few pictures showcasing its immaculate condition, its sleek design, and a screen that promised crystal clear resolution. The caption read, "Almost brand new. Urgent sale. Need gone ASAP." It was too good to pass up. Acting on impulse, I quickly typed out a message, inquiring if it was still available. I wasn't expecting an immediate response, but within a matter of minutes, a notification popped up on my screen. It was Dave, the seller. His response was short, almost curt. "Still available. Can you meet tonight?" I hesitated for a moment. Evening meetings for online sales were generally a no-go in my book, but he justified, "I work the graveyard shift. Evening is the only time that works. Sorry for the inconvenience." His explanation seemed logical enough. I took a moment to think it over. I considered the public setting, the coffee shop bustling with people, the baristas who might recognize a regular like me. Weighing the pros against the cons, I decided to risk it. The prospect of finally owning that laptop was too enticing. "All right," I replied. "Starbucks on Elm Street, around 8 p.m? His response was almost instantaneous, "See you there." By the time I reached Starbucks, the vibrant hues of sunset had given way to the deep blue of early night. From outside, I could see the coffee shop bathed in an artificial glow, creating stark silhouettes of the patrons inside against the window panes. It should have been comforting, a regular scene on any given day, but tonight it felt different. Pushing open the door, the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped me, momentarily calming my nerves. The ambient noise was a mix of hushed conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, and the low hum of indie music playing overhead. Most tables were occupied by people engrossed in their screens or deep in conversation. In one dimly lit corner, I spotted a man who fit Dave's vague description, mid-30s, dark hair that looked like it hadn't seen a comb in days, and sporting a beard that was somewhere between intentional and lazy. It was his eyes, constantly scanning the room with an unsettling sharpness, that made me second-guess my decision. Steeling myself, I walked over. "Dave?" My voice quivered slightly. He looked me up and down as if assessing whether I was worth his time. "You here for the laptop?" His voice was deeper than I'd imagined, with a gravelly edge. Attempting to hide my growing unease, I said, "Yes, that's me. Can I take a look?" Without a word, he slid the device towards me. Its cold, metal exterior felt reassuringly genuine in my hands. As I examined it, trying to figure out if everything was in order, he suddenly leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You brought the money, right?" Before I could even respond, the door swung open, causing a few heads to turn. Two tall, broad-shouldered men walked in, their footsteps heavy and deliberate. Their attire was unremarkable, but their demeanor was anything but. Their gaze was unwavering, their attention focused solely on me. They exuded an aura that sent chills down my spine. The realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just about a laptop. The game had changed, and I was the unsuspecting pawn. The cozy ambience of the coffee shop suddenly felt more like a trap, and I knew I had to think fast. The smell of coffee that once seemed inviting now felt stifling. The gentle murmurs and hums of machinery faded into the background, drowned out by the rapid beating of my heart. I was surrounded. There was no easy escape. Dave's smirk widened into a sinister grin. "The internet is a funny place, isn't it? A world where trust is both the currency and the weapon." He leaned in closer, his foul breath mixing with the scent of espresso. "You should have been more careful." My voice trembled, but I tried to sound defiant. All I wanted was a good deal. I never signed up for this. The man to my left, with a thick neck and tattoos peeking out from under his shirt collar, chuckled, the sound devoid of humor. "Life's full of surprises." His fingers, adorned with heavy rings, tightened around my wrist, the cold metal biting into my skin. I tried to yank my hand away, but it was a futile effort. His strength easily overpowered mine. "Let go of me," I hissed, the weight of my predicament pressing down on me. As the seconds ticked on and my hope dwindled, the coffee shop's entrance bell chimed, drawing our attention. A uniformed officer stepped in, his eyes scanning the shop before landing on our group. His hand moved subtly to the radio on his belt, signaling he'd noticed the tension. Sensing the shift, the man on my right, leaner but equally menacing, nudged Dave. "We need to go. Now." Dave's eyes locked onto mine, a promise of menace in them. "This isn't over," he whispered, his voice dripping with venom. Without further delay, the three of them quickly retreated, the door chime marking their exit. As they disappeared into the shadows outside, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The officer, now at my side, gently asked, "You all right?" I sensed something off the moment I walked in. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I nodded. "Thanks to you, I think I just dodged a bullet." Literally. Browsing through Craigslist on lazy Sunday afternoons had become something of a ritual. The miscellany of items, the hidden gems among the junk, it was a digital thrift shop that brought excitement to my otherwise mundane weekends. The bright glow of my laptop screen illuminated my dim room as I scrolled endlessly. One particular post grabbed my attention: vintage leather briefcase with brass detailing. Unique combination lock. Urgent sale. The provided images displayed a worn-out leather case with intricate brass patterns. Its age gave it character, and its price was a steal for its perceived value. "Why is this so cheap?" I mused aloud, shooting a quick message to the seller. Within minutes, a reply buzzed on my screen: "Available for pickup tonight." Meet at the Moonlit Cafe? The Moonlit Cafe was a popular spot, just a block away from my apartment. Agreeing to the terms, I found myself seated across from the seller a few hours later. He was older than I expected, late 50s, maybe early 60s. Wrinkles etched his forehead, and the evident stress of the years gone by reflected in his drooping eyes. But it was the constant twitch in his left eye that made him particularly memorable. He observed me for a second before speaking, his voice gravelly from age or perhaps heavy smoking. "Are you absolutely certain about this purchase?" he asked, placing the briefcase on the table with an audible thud. Its weight was more than I had anticipated. I raised an eyebrow, surprised by the question. With a laugh, I replied, "For this price, who wouldn't be? It's just an old briefcase." I handed over the cash, and we concluded our transaction. That evening, my living room was illuminated only by a solitary lamp, casting shadows that danced on the walls. The briefcase sat on my coffee table, its combination lock taunting me. On a whim, I tried my birth date. A soft, yet distinct click sounded, and the case opened to reveal a plethora of meticulously organized files. Each folder, marked with dates, seemed harmless. Yet, something about them screamed otherwise. The real mystery was about to unfold. The dim ambience of my room, complemented by the glow of my table lamp, created a haunting atmosphere. Each file I touched felt like a violation, an invasion of my personal life. The crisp sound of flipping pages was punctuated by my sharp intakes of breath as I discovered more about this unseen observer's obsession with me. There were not just pictures. The sheer level of detail in the notes was horrifying. 2009, March 13th, chatted with Jessica about the European backpacking trip. Seems excited. How did they know about that private conversation? There were references to my favorite cafe spots, my gym schedule, even notes about the dates I went on. The photos grew increasingly personal. Candid shots at family events, stolen moments of laughter with friends, even pictures from outside my bedroom window. It was as if my entire life had been laid out in these files. But the envelope with today's date on it was the pinnacle of this unnerving discovery. I picked it up with shaky hands, feeling the weight of its significance. As I carefully opened the seal, a neatly folded note slid out. "You shouldn't have bought this." Those 5 words were cold, stark, and they held an implicit threat. The message was clear: my stalker was watching, even now. The weight of this realization caused my stomach to churn with anxiety. My apartment, which was once my safe haven, suddenly felt exposed and vulnerable. I recalled the brief interaction with the seller. The way he had looked at me wasn't just simple curiosity. It was as if he was measuring me, weighing my potential reaction. His twitchy eye, the strained undertones in his voice, and his reluctance were all making sense now. He wasn't just a middleman, he was directly involved. And, by the looks of it, deeply so. Clutching the note, my thoughts raced. Was he the stalker, or was he merely a pawn in this dangerous game? Who else was involved? How did they gather all this information? And most importantly, what did they want from me? The night had turned silent, save for the soft hum of the city outside. But in my ears, a deafening roar of questions, fear, and realization played on a loop. I needed to act, and fast. This was no ordinary purchase, it was a ticket into a perilous world that I hadn't signed up for. My heart raced as the cafe lights came into view. Memories of our meeting came flooding back. The casual atmosphere of the cafe, in stark contrast to the revelations of the evening, felt surreal. Inside, the barista, a young woman with a nose ring and vibrant tattoos, looked up as the bell chimed my entry. "Can I help you?" she asked. Describing Mr. Griffin to her, her face morphed into recognition. "Oh yeah, the older guy. Comes in daily, sits in that corner," she pointed, always watching the door, like he's waiting for someone. "Kinda creepy if you ask me." Her words confirmed my suspicions. Griffin had likely been tracking my movements and used the cafe for his eerie observations. I thanked her, my mind racing. I had to confront this man. An online search provided an address and also shed light on a murky past. A stalking charge, but no conviction. He'd slipped through the system. His house stood isolated, shielded by overgrown shrubs. Its paint was peeling off, and the windows, clouded with grime, gave it a look of abandonment. The only sign of life was the dim light escaping through the slightly open door. Swallowing my anxiety, I pushed the door open. The musty air greeted me. The dim living room revealed a sight that made my stomach turn. The walls were a macabre gallery of my life. Among the sea of my photographs, I spotted Mr. Griffin. He sat, his silhouette illuminated by the glow of a single lamp, his back to me. "You finally found me," his voice broke the oppressive silence, dripping with an unhinged quality. Gathering courage, I confronted him. "What's this obsession with me? Why am I your project?" He slowly turned. His eyes, cloudy with age and madness, pierced mine. "You could have been her. My daughter. She left me years ago, and I saw her in you." His confession was interrupted by a sudden lunge. Caught off guard, we tumbled, wrestling for control. But my desperation for survival gave me a strength I didn't know I had. Spotting a vase on a nearby table, I smashed it against his head. He crumpled, unconscious. Gasping for breath, I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911. The aftermath was a blur. Police. Statements. Relief. The old briefcase, my initial attraction, was instrumental in ensuring that Mr. Griffin would never torment anyone again. As life resumed its normalcy, the scars of that ordeal served as a constant reminder: there are dark corners in the most innocuous places, even in online classifieds. The rain was pouring as I finally reached Seattle, a city that promised a fresh start away from memories of a marriage gone sour. My name's Alex Carter. For the past 10 years, I'd been a journalist in Chicago, covering everything from political scandals to human interest stories. But the past year had been rough. My wife and I realized we were on different life paths, and the divorce was the painful culmination. After signing the divorce papers, I decided it was time for a change. A new city, new stories to chase, and hopefully, a new beginning. My trusty old Chevy, which had faithfully served me through countless assignments, decided to give up just as I reached the city limits. With a sigh, I called a tow truck and settled into a small hotel for the night. The next morning, armed with a cup of strong coffee, I began my quest for a new ride. I wanted something reliable, not too flashy. Craigslist seemed like a good starting point. Scrolling through the listings, an ad caught my attention: a vintage '95 Toyota Camry in excellent condition, sold by an elderly couple, the Marshalls, and priced surprisingly low. Their quaint little cottage was about a 30-minute drive from the heart of Seattle. As I pulled up, the scent of blooming roses filled the air. The house, with its white picket fence and warm golden lights shining through the windows, felt like a scene straight out of a 1950s postcard. A stark contrast to the steel and glass jungle of my new apartment in downtown Seattle. The door opened, revealing Mrs. Marshall. Petite with silver hair neatly tied in a bun, her eyes held the warmth of a doting grandmother. "Ah, you must be Alex," she exclaimed. Come in, come in. I've made some lemonade. The car can wait a few minutes, can't it?" As we settled in their sunroom, the elderly gentleman, Mr. Marshall, joined us, his face lined with age but eyes sparkling with mischief. They shared stories of their youth, their travels, and eventually, the history of the car I was interested in. "It's been in the family for ages," Mr. Marshall chuckled, sipping his lemonade. "But we've hardly used it since we retired. It's just gathering dust in the garage." Curiosity piqued, I asked if I could take it for a test drive. The Camry, despite its age, handled like a dream, smooth and responsive. As we negotiated the price, which was already a steal, Mr. Marshall even shaved off a few more bucks, saying it felt right to hand it over to a fellow storyteller. By evening, as the sun cast a golden hue over the horizon, I was driving back to my apartment, the Camry's engine purring contentedly. Little did I know that this seemingly simple purchase would lead me into a mystery that would challenge every investigative instinct I had. The first few days with the Camry were blissfully uneventful. Seattle's streets were a maze, but the car handled them with grace. I even got a few compliments at work about how well preserved it looked for its age. One evening after a long day of interviewing sources for a story, I climbed into the Camry, intent on finding a more comfortable driving position. As I reached down to adjust the driver's seat, my fingers brushed against something odd beneath the carpeting. It felt like a loose flap or ridge. My curiosity getting the better of me, I parked under a street lamp and began to explore. Pulling back the carpet, I discovered a metal plate with a concealed latch. Lifting it revealed a hidden compartment, and a chill immediately ran down my spine. At the bottom, what looked like dried, old blood formed a dark, uneven pattern. My heart pounded. This wasn't just an ordinary stain. Lying beside the dried blood was a folded, yellowed newspaper clipping. I unfolded it with trembling hands, and my eyes scanned the headline, "Young Journalist, Diana Mitchell, Goes Missing Under Mysterious Circumstances." The attached black and white picture showed a vibrant young woman, her face full of life. The last line of the report mentioned her last known location. She was seen getting into a '95 Toyota Camry. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Was this the same car? The odds seemed astronomical, but the evidence was staring me in the face. For hours, I immersed myself in online archives and old news reports about Diana's case. Her disappearance had been a significant event in Seattle's journalism community. Everyone remembered the young reporter who had vanished without a trace. And now, there was a solid lead sitting right in my driveway. Late into the night, as I combed through more articles, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. The display showed an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Did you like our little gift, Alex?" The voice was old, gravelly, and unmistakably Mr. Marshall's. I gripped the phone, fighting off the panic. "What do you mean? Why did you sell me this car?" A chuckle on the other end sent shivers down my spine. "You journalists, always asking questions. Maybe Diana asked too many. And now, it's your turn." The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, heart pounding. The sweet elderly couple image had shattered. A horrifying past lay underneath, and I had inadvertently become a part of it. But I wasn't about to become another unsolved mystery. I was going to get answers. Upon realizing that there must have been some form of surveillance on the Camry, a dreadful thought struck me, a tracker. I quickly scoured the car, finding a small device tucked beneath the chassis. I crushed it under my heel. As fear and anger melded, I decided on a direct confrontation. I felt vulnerable but fortified myself with a pocket knife and made sure my phone's emergency dial was just a tap away. Driving to the Marshall's cottage, each turn and twist of the road heightened my anxiety. Upon arrival, the charming facade of the cottage now cast ominous shadows in the dimming light. The roses, previously a symbol of beauty, now seemed like a veil for the dark secrets within. Gathering my courage, I knocked loudly. The door creaked open, revealing Mrs. Marshall. Gone was the genial old lady who'd served me lemonade. In her place stood a woman with cold, calculating eyes. "What do you want?" she asked sharply. "Where's Mr. Marshall?" I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady. Without a word, she pointed towards the garage. Pushing past her, I entered cautiously. Amidst the clutter of rusty tools, gardening equipment, and the overpowering scent of old engine oil, Mr. Marshall stood, leaning against a workbench. He didn't seem surprised to see me. "I didn't think you'd come back," he said, his tone ominous. Swallowing hard, I confronted him. "Why did you involve me in this? Why Diana? What did she know?" He sighed heavily. "She was too curious. Found out about our side business, the one we don't advertise on Craigslist." Before I could further inquire, a sharp glint caught my eye. Mrs. Marshall, with a wicked smirk, lunged at me, a large kitchen knife in her grasp. Panic surged, but years of living in the city had sharpened my reflexes. I dodged just in time. Suddenly, the loud, frenzied barking of a dog echoed. From the corner of my eye, I saw a large German shepherd, probably from a neighboring property, dash into the garage, drawn by the noise. The dog lunged at Mrs. Marshall, causing her to lose her grip on the knife. Seizing the moment, I tackled her to the ground. As I struggled to keep her restrained, the sound of sirens filled the air. Turns out a concerned neighbor had spotted the commotion and called the police. Officers stormed the property, handcuffing the Marshalls. The charming elderly couple I'd thought I'd known were now prime suspects in a series of criminal activities. The aftermath was overwhelming. Detectives unearthed a maze of crimes linked to the Marshalls. The Toyota, which I once deemed a steal, turned out to be a Pandora's box of their illicit past. While I walked away with no physical harm, the incident left a lasting impact. I often found myself reflecting on the experience, grappling with the understanding that sometimes the most ordinary-looking people can harbor the darkest secrets. The world wasn't as black and white as I'd believed, and trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. The Camry, instead of symbolizing a new start, became a testament to the gray shades of human nature.